I used to think the coldest thing I'd ever feel was a Portland winter. I was wrong. The coldest thing is being shoved out of your own home on Christmas night by your own father. My name is Harper Carter, and last Christmas, everything I thought I knew about family shattered in a single moment. It happened at the dining table, crystal glasses, gold-trimmed plates, guests pretending we were the perfect Carter family. Then Grandpa George's trembling hand dropped a small piece of turkey onto the silk tablecloth. My father's chair scraped back so violently the music stopped. "That's it," he snarled. "If you can't keep that useless old man under control, get out, both of you." Before I could react, he shoved Grandpa's wheelchair toward the door, dragged me by the arm, and threw us into the freezing night. I thought we'd lost everything. I didn't know. Grandpa had a secret worth $2.3 billion. I didn't feel the cold at first. Shock is warmer than any coat. Snow drifted into Grandpa George's lap as he clutched the thin blanket across his legs. His breathing turned quick and shallow the way it always did when he was scared but trying not to show it. "Harper, are you all right?" he whispered. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. Behind us, through the frosted windows of the mansion, laughter continued as if nothing had happened, as if a man in a wheelchair and his daughter had not just been thrown out like garbage. I pounded on the door. "Dad, open the door. Grandpa could freeze out here." Inside, I heard clinking glasses. Someone asked, "What's happening?" Then my father's voice, cold and sharp. "Nothing. Just taking the trash out." Trash. He meant us. My throat tightened, a burn rising behind my eyes, but I forced myself to stay steady for Grandpa's sake. "Come on," I said, kneeling beside his chair. "I'll take you home." He reached out, resting his shaking hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I never wanted you to see this." But I had. I saw everything: his humiliation, my father's cruelty, the guests pretending they didn't notice. As I pushed his wheelchair down the icy driveway, snow crunching under my boots, one thought sank deep into my chest like a stone. This wasn't my family anymore. Not after tonight, and I had no idea that losing them was the first step toward discovering a truth worth $2.3 billion. The moment we reached my tiny apartment on Hawthorne Street, the heater died again. It greeted us with its usual cough, 2 weak clicks, then silence. Perfect. I rushed to wheel Grandpa George inside, rubbing his cold hands between mine. "Sit tight, Grandpa. I'll warm the kettle." He nodded, trying to smile. "I've survived worse, Harper." But his lips were turning blue. The apartment was embarrassingly small: peeling paint, a sagging couch, a kitchenette with a flickering bulb. Everything looked even worse compared to my father's chandelier-filled mansion. I caught Grandpa scanning the room. Not judging, just hurting. "Harper," he said softly, "I shouldn't be here. I'm a burden. Put me in a nursing." "No." The word came out like a slap. I knelt in front of him, gripping his frail hands. "You're not going anywhere. You're staying with me." His eyes glistened. That night, I heated leftovers from my shift at the diner, half a roasted chicken and mashed potatoes I'd packed because I knew we might need them. I fed him slowly, watching his hands tremble as he tried to lift the fork. "Harper, you're working too much." "I'm fine." That was a lie. I worked morning shifts at the diner, then stocked shelves at the supermarket until midnight. My legs ached constantly. My hands were cracked from hot water and cheap soap, and sleep came in thin, uneven scraps. But what choice did I have? Rent, medication, food. Everything doubled the moment Grandpa moved in. At 2 a.m., after washing the last dish, I collapsed onto the small cot beside his wheelchair. Grandpa reached down, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face. "You shouldn't sacrifice your life for me," he whispered. I swallowed hard. "I'm not sacrificing anything. You're my only real family." A tear fell down his wrinkled cheek. Out of all the nights we spent together, that one clung to my memory the most: 2 people trying to share warmth in a room that barely had any. 2 people abandoned, but holding on to each other. I thought this was the lowest point of our lives. But we were only standing at the edge of a much bigger truth, one that would flip everything we knew upside down. It was a rare Sunday morning when I wasn't rushing to work. I was washing dishes when Grandpa cleared his throat. "Harper," he said, voice oddly steady, "can you drive me somewhere today?" I froze. He hadn't asked to go anywhere in weeks, not since Dad threw us out. "Where?" I asked. "You'll see." He sounded different, calm, serious, almost resolute, a tone I'd never heard from him before. I helped him into the passenger seat, buckled his blanket around his legs, then folded his wheelchair into the trunk. When I started the engine, he pointed straight ahead. Go left, keep driving. No address. No hint. Just quiet instructions. We drove past the familiar streets of Portland, past the diner, past the supermarket where I stocked shelves at night, past the small clinic where I got Grandpa's medicine. Then the scenery changed. The houses grew larger, the sidewalks cleaner, the cars sleeker. Grandpa, where are we going? I asked again. He didn't answer, just gently laid a hand on mine. Trust me, Harper. Finally, we reached an iron gate that looked like it belonged to a historic estate. Tall, black, and carved with intricate patterns. I slowed the car. Grandpa, this is someone's mansion. Before I could finish, the gate swung open. Automatically. 2 guards stepped out, straightened their uniforms, and bowed. To my grandfather. My jaw dropped. What the hell is happening? One guard said. Welcome home, Mr. Carter. We've been informed you might return. Return? Mr. Carter? I looked at Grandpa. He just smiled faintly. Drive on, sweetheart. The path beyond the gate was long lined with blooming rose bushes, marble statues, and fountains that sprayed sunlight into shards of rainbow. It felt like we were driving through a dream I didn't remember having. At the end of the path stood a mansion so enormous I thought it was a hotel, at first. White stone walls, red-tiled roofs, arched windows gleaming under the afternoon sun. I slammed the brakes without meaning to. Grandpa. My voice cracked. Whose house is this? He looked at me, eyes warm and impossibly sad. Ours. The front doors burst open. A woman in a black uniform, elegant, severe, rushed out. She dropped to her knees in front of Grandpa's wheelchair as I helped him out of the car. Master George, you're back. Her voice broke. We have waited so many years. Master George? I stared at Grandpa like I was seeing him for the first time. Grandpa, I whispered. What is going on? He placed a trembling hand over mine. Inside, Harper. It's time you learned the truth your father stole from both of us. My heart hammered in my chest. I had no idea. But the life I thought I knew was about to be rewritten from the ground up. The inside of the mansion didn't feel real. Crystal chandeliers glittered above us like frozen galaxies. Marble floors stretched farther than the entire width of my apartment. Dozens, literally dozens of staff lined the hallway, heads bowed as Grandpa's wheelchair passed. Good afternoon, Master George. Welcome home, sir. It's an honor to see you again. I swallowed hard. Grandpa, why are they calling you that? He didn't answer. Not yet. He led me well. I pushed him into a massive office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking rolling hills and a lake I didn't even know existed in Oregon. The room smelled like pine wood, leather, and something older, heavier. Sit, Harper, he said quietly. I sat across from him at a mahogany desk the size of my entire bedroom. For a moment, he just looked at me, really looked, his eyes glassy but steady. I should have told you long ago, he began, voice rough. But your father robbed you of the truth before you were even born. My breath hitched. My father? Grandpa nodded slowly. Thomas wasn't always cruel. But greed changes people. And it changed him long before he ever had you. I leaned forward. Grandpa, tell me everything. He inhaled sharply as if pulling air straight out of the past. The beginning of the truth. 40 years ago, he said, I built a company from nothing. Carter Estates Group. Hotels, luxury apartments, timberland, commercial complexes, you name it. He paused, eyes drifting to a framed blueprint on the wall. By the time your father turned 30, the company was worth nearly $1 billion. I made him CFO. I trusted him with everything. My heart dropped. I already saw where this was going. He started leaking deals, Grandpa continued, giving competitors access to our blueprints, funneled money into private accounts. All behind my back. I clutched the arms of my chair. He stole from you? He did worse, Grandpa whispered. He signed documents in my name, forged approvals, buried evidence, and when I confronted him, Grandpa paused, his fingers trembling. He told me the company would be better off when the old man finally dies. My stomach twisted. Grandpa. That night, he said quietly, my car was run off the road. The world froze. What? He nodded. I don't know if it was him. I never had proof. But the timing, the threats, The way he didn't visit me in the hospital? A bitter smile tugged at his lips. I learned to stop asking questions. See. Ben, Dage, present salve. Dage, present salve, and a braid and Dage page. I felt my throat close. That crash. That's why you're in a wheelchair? Yes. My hands shook. My father. My flesh and blood. The man who shoved us into the snow was the same man who shattered his own father's body. And Grandpa had carried that pain alone. The rise from the ashes. But I didn't die, Grandpa said, voice firming. I rebuilt. He pointed to a row of old photographs, grainy images of warehouses, stacks of lumber, men in dusty clothes. This time I kept everything in my name. Quietly. Silently. I never used the Carter Estates brand. I built a new empire under different companies, different aliases. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder. Harper. I own 109 properties across the country. Timberland in Montana, high-rise apartments in Seattle, resorts in Colorado, a commercial district in Florida. My pulse thundered. And the portfolio? He added, lips trembling with an almost shy pride. Is worth over $2.3 billion. I stared at him, speechless. You're a billionaire. Not anymore, he corrected gently. You are. I choked. What? He slid a second folder toward me. A will. My name Harper Grace Carter printed across official pages, notarized, signed. I covered my mouth with both hands. But why me? He reached out and touched my cheek, his thumb brushing a tear I didn't realize had fallen. Because you are the only one who loved me for who I was, not what I had. You fed me when you barely had enough for yourself. You pushed me through snow the night your father discarded us like trash, and you never complained. His voice cracked. You, Harper, not Thomas, are my true family. I broke. Completely. Tears poured down my face as I leaned forward, resting my forehead against his hand. Grandpa, I don't want your money. I want you. I know, he whispered. That's exactly why you deserve all of it. The folder of truth. He tapped the second folder. This, he said, contains every crime Thomas committed: emails, bank transfers, forged contracts, audio recordings. 20 years of evidence. I sucked in a breath. You kept all this? I had to. His jaw tightened. One day, someone would need to clean the rot he left behind. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. Harper, he said softly, I'm giving you the choice I never had. A long pause. You can expose him, or you can walk away. Whatever you choose, I will stand by you. I stared at the two folders, one with a fortune, one with the truth, and suddenly felt the weight of the future press onto my chest. My father had destroyed him, used him, abandoned him, hurt him, and I was the one holding the power to end it. My hands trembled as I closed both folders. Grandpa, I whispered. I'm not afraid. His eyes softened. I know you aren't. That's why the world is about to change. He smiled, then soft, tired, proud. And I understood something unforgettable. We were no longer the family that got thrown into the snow. We were the family that was about to take back everything, on our terms. I barely slept that night. Grandpa's confession spun in my head, the betrayal, the crash, the rebuilding, the fortune, the evidence. By morning, my chest felt packed with something sharp. Rage. Hurt. Something darker than heartbreak. I made coffee the way Grandpa liked it: 2 teaspoons of sugar, a splash of cream. He watched me silently from his wheelchair. You're thinking about him, he said. I didn't deny it. Yes, I whispered. I need to see him. Grandpa nodded slowly. Take the folders. My stomach twisted. The will too? Yes, Harper. He needs to see what he threw away. I swallowed hard, slid the 2 thick folders into a leather briefcase. Mrs. Alden handed me, and hugged Grandpa tightly before leaving. Whatever happens, he said, gripping my wrist. Remember, your worth was never in that man's approval. I nodded, but my heart hammered like a warning bell. The return to the house I no longer called home. The Carter mansion looked different now. Not grand. Not intimidating. Just hollow. I rang the doorbell. Footsteps approached, and the door cracked open. Lydia stood there in a silk robe, her face stiffening when she recognized me. You, she hissed. What are you doing here? I walked past her without replying. Excuse me, she snapped, heels clicking behind me. You don't just walk into. Where's Dad? I asked. Before she could answer, Thomas Carter stepped into view from the living room. Whiskey glass in hand, hair messy, face flushed like he hadn't truly slept since Christmas. His eyes narrowed. "Oh," he said with a cold, bitter laugh. "Look who crawled back." I set the briefcase on the glass coffee table. "I didn't crawl," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I came to give you a chance." He barked an ugly, humorless laugh. "A chance? You?" He pointed the whiskey glass at me. "You ungrateful brat. I give you a life of comfort and you choose that wheelchair-stricken parasite over your own father." My hands curled into fists. "Stop calling him that." He stepped closer, breath hot with liquor. "Then what do you want, Harper? Money? Apologies? You think you can guilt-trip me?" I snapped open the briefcase. "I want you to confess." Thomas froze. Lydia's face drained of color. "To confess what?" he demanded, voice shaking. I opened the first folder and slid out the pages. Selling company intel, forging signatures, draining accounts. "Dad, this is 20 years of theft." His nostrils flared. "That old man lied to you. He has proof. That's forged." I slammed my hand on the table. "Then explain the bank transfers you signed." Lydia gasped quietly. I flipped to another section. "Or the emails you sent to competitors." He snatched a page from my hand, eyes scanning the lines. His hands shook. "Fake," he muttered. "All fake." Then the bomb hit. I pulled out a USB drive. "And the recordings of you saying you wished he'd die so you could run things properly? Also fake?" Thomas lunged, grabbing the papers, ripping them, shredding them, scattering them across the floor. "It's all lies," he roared. Lydia flinched. I didn't. I looked him dead in the eye. "Dad, he could have given you everything, but you destroyed him. And when you had the chance to fix things, you threw him into the snow." His face contorted with rage. "You chose him over me," he spat. "You never gave me a father to choose," I whispered. "The will." I opened the second folder, the one with the gold seal. Thomas stared, chest rising and falling rapidly. "What is that?" "The will," I said simply. "For what?" "For everything he owns." He snorted. "Who cares? What does that old man even have? A disability check? A rusty chair?" I slid the top page toward him. His eyes fell on the number. $2,301,450,000 and 109 properties. The color drained from his face so fast he looked sick. "No," he whispered. "No, this is a trick." "It's not." His jaw clenched, breath hitching. He gave this to you?" "To me," I confirmed. "Not to me?" he demanded, voice cracking. "I'm his son." "You also tried to destroy everything he built," I shot back. "Grandpa said you stopped being family long before I was born." Thomas staggered back like the words physically hit him. Lydia grabbed his arm. "Thomas, say something. She can't take all that. You're the heir. You're his blood." I shook my head slowly. "He chose character, not blood." His eyes filled with something I'd never seen in him before: fear. Real fear. The breaking point. "You listen to me," Thomas growled, stepping so close I could smell the alcohol on his breath. "If you take this to the police, if you ruin me, I swear to God, Harper." I stood up, meeting him eye to eye. "You what?" I said quietly. "You'll throw me into the snow again? You'll break what's left of this family? You already did." He froze. I gathered the papers slowly, deliberately. "This was your last chance." "No," he whispered, voice trembling. "Harper, you can't do this. I'm your father." I zipped the briefcase shut. "You stopped being my father the moment you threw us out into the cold. Had is not what I've wanted for and." Lydia sobbed. Thomas reached for me, but I stepped back. "Goodbye," I said. Then I walked out, past the chandelier, past the velvet curtains, past the house that never felt like home. Behind me, I heard something crash. Maybe the whiskey glass. Maybe something else breaking. I didn't turn back. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one afraid. He was. Because he knew. I now held the truth that could bring his entire world crashing down. And I was done protecting monsters. I drove straight to the office of my childhood friend, Michael Graves, now a federal prosecutor. The moment he saw the briefcase in my hands, his expression shifted from casual curiosity to alarm. "Harper," he said slowly, "what's in there?" I placed the briefcase on his desk. "Everything," I whispered. He opened it, 5 minutes later, he wasn't breathing. 10 minutes later, he was cursing under his breath. Jesus Christ, he muttered, flipping through the forged contracts. This isn't embezzlement. This is corporate sabotage. Wire fraud, federal tax crimes, decades worth. He looked at me sharply. Your father is going to prison. I swallowed hard. I know. Michael leaned forward. Once I file this, there's no going back, Harper. You ready? I closed my eyes. Grandpa George's trembling hands. The snow. My father's voice. Take the trash out. I opened my eyes. Do it. The raid. 3 days later, the world shifted. I was in Grandpa's mansion, reading to him in the garden, when Mrs. Alden rushed outside holding a tablet. Miss Harper, you need to see this. The headline exploded across the screen. Breaking news. FBI raid Carter Holdings headquarters. My heart slammed against my ribs. Footage showed agents in navy jackets storming through the glass lobby of Carter Holdings, yellow tape blocking the entrance. Employees herded outside, confused and frightened. Boxes, computers, hard drives, all seized. Then the camera cut, and there he was. Thomas Carter, my father, his hands cuffed behind his back as 2 federal agents marched him through the crowd. His expensive coat hung crooked, hair disheveled, face drained of all color. The reporters swarmed him like bees. Mr. Carter, are you aware of the charges? Did you steal from your own father? Do you deny forging documents? Is it true your daughter turned in evidence? Thomas didn't answer. He couldn't. His mouth was frozen halfway open, shock gripping every feature. When he finally looked up, his eyes found the camera, found me. For a split second, his expression twisted rage, betrayal, fear, all tangled into one painful grimace. Then he was shoved into the back of the cruiser. The door slammed shut. Sirens screamed. The camera zoomed in on his empty whiskey glass still sitting on his office desk. The fall of Thomas Carter had begun. The mother steps into the fire. The next day, Lydia arrived at the federal building in oversized sunglasses, wrapped in a designer coat like it could hide her guilt. Reporters were merciless. Mrs. Carter, did you help your husband? Are you aware your home is being seized? Did you lie on tax documents? Do you blame your stepdaughter? Lydia trembled, mascara streaking down her face. She's lying, she cried. Harper is trying to ruin us. My husband is innocent. An agent opened the door. Mrs. Carter, step inside. Her screams echoed long after the door shut, face to face on national TV. That evening, every major news channel ran the same segment. The Carter empire collapses. They listed everything: fraud, embezzlement, contract forgery, asset manipulation, tax evasion, attempted corporate sabotage. My father's face appeared beneath the captions like a warning. Carter Holdings, all assets frozen, investigation underway, and then, anonymous sources say the evidence was submitted by Thomas Carter's own daughter. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Texts, calls, voicemails. I didn't answer any. Instead, I sat beside Grandpa on the couch as he watched silently, his hands gripping the armrests. When Thomas's mugshot flashed on the screen, Grandpa closed his eyes, not in satisfaction, not in triumph, but in grief. My son, he whispered, voice cracking, could have chosen honesty. He could have chosen family. But he chose greed, Harper. And greed always collapses. I put my hand over his. He hurt you, Grandpa. He hurt us both. You didn't deserve any of it. He nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. You did the right thing, he whispered. You saved the legacy he tried to destroy. I held him gently as he cried. For the first time, he wasn't crying out of pain, but out of release. The house that once rejected us. That night, I drove past the Carter mansion. It looked smaller. Police cars lined the driveway. Officers carried boxes of documents and equipment through the front door. A large notice was taped across the glass. Property seized by federal order. For a moment, I felt nothing. Then, unexpectedly, I felt sorry. Sorry for the little girl inside me who had once believed her father could be kind. Sorry for the boy my father must have been before greed took him. Sorry for the family we never had. But I didn't stop. I didn't go inside. I didn't look back. I drove home to Grandpa, to safety, to truth, to the life my father had thrown away. And tomorrow would bring consequences no one in the Carter family could ever escape. The trial began 2 months later. Winter melted into a wet, gray spring, and the courthouse in downtown Portland became a second home to me. Every morning, I took Grandpa George in his wheelchair, rolled him down the marble halls, and sat with him on the wooden benches. He insisted on being there for every session. "I need to hear the truth spoken out loud," he said. And he did. The courtroom. The first day, Thomas was escorted in wearing an orange jumpsuit. An orange jumpsuit. The man who used to wear tailored suits and silk ties now looked small, gaunt. Like arrogance had been drained straight out of him. He avoided my eyes, avoided Grandpa's. Lydia sat on the opposite bench, pale and trembling, clutching a tissue so tight it ripped. She had lost weight. Her hair was unstyled. Her hands were shaking. The judge read the charges. Wire fraud, corporate fraud, forgery of financial documents, tax evasion, asset manipulation, intent to sabotage a parent's business. Each word was a nail. Thomas looked like each one pierced his skin. "Michael, my friend." The federal prosecutor stood tall and steady. His voice echoed sharply. "Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. It's Skeens and my dare." He played the tapes. He read the emails. He displayed the bank transfers on the overhead screen. He called witnesses, former employees who testified with trembling hands about Thomas's greed and cruelty. Thomas flinched at every recording of his own voice. "The old man needs to die already. I'll take everything when he's gone. Harper doesn't deserve a cent." I heard Grandpa's breath hitch beside me. I placed my hand over his. "I'm okay," he whispered. But his hand shook uncontrollably. The cross-examination. When Thomas's lawyer cross-examined Grandpa, the courtroom held its breath. The attorney leaned forward. "Mr. Carter, given your medical history, isn't it possible your memory of events 20 years ago is confused?" Grandpa stared straight at him. "My body is weak," he said, "but my mind remembers every time my son betrayed me. Some wounds never fade." The room fell silent. I bit down a sob. A broken man. On the fourth day, something unexpected happened. Thomas finally turned toward us. His eyes sunken, bloodshot landed on Grandpa's frail frame. For a moment that hung heavier than gravity, his face cracked. Not with anger, not with denial, but with something raw, shame. He looked down, shoulders trembling. That was the first time in my life I had ever seen my father look human. The verdict. On the seventh day, the judge delivered the verdict. Her voice was firm, relentless. "Thomas Carter, the court finds you guilty on all counts." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. "For your crimes," she continued, "you are sentenced to 22 years in federal prison, without possibility of parole for at least 15. He'll have grieved to be aids to in his me." Lydia sobbed into her hands. Thomas swayed on his feet, his mouth slightly open, face drained of all color. Then slowly, mechanically, he turned toward us, toward Grandpa. He opened his mouth, and a sound came out that didn't sound like my father at all. A soft, broken whisper. "Dad, I'm sorry." Grandpa closed his eyes. 2 tears rolled down his wrinkled cheeks. But he didn't speak. The guards took Thomas away. The door clanged shut. It was over. The decline. After the verdict, Grandpa's health dropped quickly, alarmingly quickly. At first, it was coughing, then fatigue, then trouble breathing, even with help. I moved my bed into his room, sleeping on a cot beside him. Every night, he reached out weakly until his hand found mine. I held it tight. "Harper," he whispered one night, voice thin as smoke, "don't let this darkness define you." "I won't," I whispered back. "I have you." A sad smile pulled at his lips. "One day, you won't." My chest cracked at the edges. "Don't talk like that," I pleaded. He lifted one trembling hand and touched my cheek. "You gave me more life than I ever expected to have," he said. "More love than my own son." His eyes softened. "And you will carry this family forward, Harper. Not with wealth, with heart." I laid my forehead on the back of his hand. "I love you, Grandpa." "I know," he whispered. The final morning. Spring sunlight filtered through the curtains the morning he left me. I brought a tray of warm breakfast oatmeal with honey, chamomile tea into his room and called softly, "Grandpa, time to wake you." The rest of the sentence dissolved. He was lying peacefully, eyes closed, a faint smile on his lips. One hand still reached toward the side of the bed, the place where my cot usually was. I took his hand and held it against my forehead, sobbing silently. "Thank you," I whispered, "for everything." He'd passed gently, peacefully. A man who lived through betrayal, rebuilt an empire from ashes, and chose love over blood, finally rested. The funeral. I kept his funeral small just as he wanted. No marble coffin, no reporters, no corporate displays, just a pine casket, simple white flowers, and the people he helped over decades. Hundreds came. Former employees, now gray-haired, neighbors from his old warehouse, workers from timber mills, a hotel maid who burst into tears when she saw his photo. They all said the same thing. Mr. Carter saved me. He paid for my son's school. He fixed my roof and refused payment. He was the kindest man I ever met. I stood there, shaking, unable to speak. Someone hugged me and whispered, "You're just like him." That broke me again. The legacy begins. 3 days later, the family attorney read the will officially. When he said my name as the sole heir of $2.3 billion, a hush fell over the room. Executives bowed their heads. Old workers cried openly. Mrs. Alden placed a hand over her heart. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel rich. I felt responsible. Deeply, painfully responsible. I went home to Grandpa's empty room that night, touched the armrest of his wheelchair, and whispered, "I won't let you down." A breeze blew through the open window. Maybe just the wind. Maybe him. Either way, I felt less alone. Grief comes in waves. Some days, it hit me like a truck the moment I woke up. Some nights, it crept in quietly, settling on my chest until I couldn't breathe. The mansion felt too big without Grandpa George. His wheelchair empty, his tea mug still on the counter, his laugh echoing in corners my father never filled. I spent weeks working through legal documents, transitioning assets, and meeting with boards Grandpa once led from the shadows. Everyone looked at me with a mix of awe and uncertainty. A 8-year-old girl. Suddenly, the head of an empire. But I wasn't scared. Because Grandpa left me something more powerful than money. A blueprint for how to live. I renamed everything Carter Legacy Group. New logo. New mission statement. New policies. The first thing I implemented. Paid scholarships for young workers from struggling families. Grandpa always believed talent shouldn't be chained by poverty. The second thing. Strict ethics training. No more greed. No more exploitation. And the third. Every employee, from janitors to executives, would be treated with dignity. It wasn't about rewriting the past. It was about building the future Grandpa never got to see. I met Ethan Blake by accident. He was an architect consulting for one of our renovation projects. Tall, soft-eyed, with a calm presence that felt like oxygen after months of emotional suffocation. On our first meeting, he looked at me, not my title, not my money, me. "You look exhausted," he said gently. "When's the last time you slept?" I laughed for the first time in weeks. Something warmed inside me. We began having coffee after meetings, talking about design, life, grief, hope. He never pushed, never pried. He simply stayed. One evening, as we walked through the rose garden Grandpa loved, Ethan paused. "You're carrying so much alone," he murmured. "I can handle it," I said. "I know you can," he replied, "but you don't have to." And just like that, a crack in my armor let light in. Over the next year, we built something gentle, steady, real. The following spring, we welcomed our son, Henry Blake Carter. I cried when I held him, not out of fear, but because it felt like life had finally come full circle. I whispered into his tiny ear, "You'll know who your great-grandfather was. I'll make sure of it." On the anniversary of Grandpa's passing, we held the first ever George Carter Honor Scholarship ceremony. The hall was filled with hundreds of young people, kids from broken homes, kids abandoned by their parents, kids who worked 2 jobs the way I once did. As I stepped onto the stage, the lights brightened. Faces looked up at me with hope. My throat tightened. But when I glanced at the enormous portrait of Grandpa, the same soft smile, the same warm eyes, my fear dissolved. I spoke from my heart. Last year on Christmas, my father threw me and my grandfather out into the snow. He shoved a wheelchair-bound old man into the freezing night because he thought appearances mattered more than people. Because he believed kindness was weakness. He believed money defined worth. He believed family was something he could control. I paused, breath shaking. He was wrong. The hall went silent. My grandfather, George Carter, survived betrayal, poverty, disability, and decades of silence. And yet, he chose kindness every single time. He built an empire not from greed, but from patience. Not from cruelty, but from integrity. I looked at the students, some wiping tears. He left me $2.3 billion, but that's not the inheritance that changed my life. The real inheritance was this. If you keep your dignity and kindness, you will never be empty-handed. A wave of emotion swept the room. You may have nothing today. You may feel abandoned. You may think the world has thrown you into the cold. I know how that feels. But listen to me. You can rebuild everything. Not out of anger, but out of heart. I smiled through my tears. My grandfather believed in second chances, and this scholarship is his second chance living on through all of you. The applause that followed was not polite. It was thunderous, raw, healing. I stepped down from the stage, and dozens of students hugged me. They cried. I cried. In that moment, I felt Grandpa beside me. In every heartbeat, every trembling inhale, every spark of hope lighting up the room. Late that night, I walked alone through the rose garden, Henry asleep in Ethan's arms back home. The roses were the deepest red I had ever seen. I stopped beside Grandpa's favorite bench, traced my fingers over the carving Ethan made for me. In honor of George Carter, a builder of hearts. A breeze rustled the petals. Grandpa, I whispered, I hope I made you proud. For a moment, just a moment, I felt a warmth on my shoulder. Maybe the wind, maybe something else. Either way, I knew. He never truly left me, and he never would.